Hello and a very good evening. You're watching news at 6 on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are the headlines. India and Israel signed 7 agreements after summit-level talks between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Terrorism and development cooperation dominate agenda as leaders pitch for increased people-to-people contact. Flood situation worsens in Assam. 17 people killed as overflowing rivers burst their banks. More than 3.8 lakh people affected in 848 villages. Lakhimpur, Jorhat and Nalbari districts are the worst hit. After 20 days of standoff in Sikkim, China reiterates that its border in Doklam region is clearly defined. Once again urges India to withdraw troops from the area. And a day after North Korea tests ballistic missile capable of reaching the US mainland, China tells it not to violate UN Security Council resolutions. US calls for global action to hold Pyongyang accountable for its pursuit of nuclear weapons. India and Israel on Wednesday stepped up their bilateral relationship to a strategic format. 7 important agreements were signed between the two countries after the conclusion of summit-level talks between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today. Details in this report.
India and Israel signed 7 agreements at summit-level talks between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday. They include 3 agreements on space technology, 2 on water, 1 on innovation and 1 of Mashav, the Israeli Agency for International Development Cooperation. Terrorism, development cooperation and trade dominated the talks between the two leaders, who decided to make concerted efforts for increasing people-to-people contact.
India and Israel are changing our world and maybe changing parts of the world, because this is a cooperation. It's a marriage, really, made in heaven, but we're implementing it here on earth. We spoke about so many fields where we think we can make a big difference in water and agriculture and health, in every field.
I'm honored to be in Israel on this extraordinary visit. In our modern journey, our paths have been different, but our beliefs in democratic values and economic progress has been a shared pursuit. Visit is an occasion to rejuvenate the bonds of our friendship, to compose a new chapter in our ties, and to jointly venture toward new horizons of engagement.
Narendra Modi also on Israeli President Reuven Rivlin and discussed ways to strengthen bilateral ties. He also pitched the centre's Make in India initiative with the president.
It is good and it is really a pleasure to have as a guest one of the greatest leaders of the world today, Prime Minister Modi. Welcome to Israel.
India ka eye, Israel ka eye. So eye for eye with eye. मैं समझता हूँ ये टर्मिनोलॉजी पक्की मुझे नजर आ रही है, और जब हम लोग बोलते हैं इजराइल तो हमारे लोगों का फीलिंग आता है इजराइल इज ए फ्रेंड, मींस ईच real fact is Israel.
On Tuesday, Prime Minister Netanyahu welcomed Prime Minister Modi to his residence in Jerusalem. During a joint news conference, both leaders talked about battling terrorism.
Yad Vashem tells us that those who believe in humanity and civilized values must come together and defeat it at all costs. As such, we must resolutely oppose the evils of terrorism, radicalism, and violence that plague our time.
But I have to say that we also face common challenges, and the first of it is to defeat the forces of terror that rampage through the world and threaten both our countries. So we must stand together in this battle, much as we work together to perfect the future.
This is the first visit ever by an Indian Prime Minister to Israel. Modi arrived in Tel Aviv on Tuesday for a 3-day visit. In an unprecedented gesture, Israeli Prime Minister and his entire cabinet accorded a special welcome by receiving Prime Minister Modi at the airport, an honor so far bestowed only on the US President and the Pope. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, joining me for a chat right now is our correspondent Akhilesh Suman. Well, Akhilesh, another bilateral visit by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and again terror was high on the agenda.
Yes, Frank, terror was high on the agenda, but not only terror was on the agenda, but the whole mechanism how to fight the terror was on the agenda, and it included both security issues, security preparedness, the equipments for security, and also for defense preparedness and equipments for the defense. So it is like two brothers deciding together, going together for combating terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. And Frank, you know that both India and Israel have been has been in the same way affected by the terrorist activities, the same way the borders are insecure, both India and Israel. And that is why you have seen the bonhomie of a sort between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and also Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Frank.
Indeed. And as far as this particular visit itself is concerned, Prime Minister Modi as well as Benjamin Netanyahu calling it a historic visit. And it seemed like, the bilateral visit itself has gone on well, with 7 MOUs being signed as well.
Yeah, naturally, that when Prime Minister Narasimha Rao is in the chair, he actually established diplomatic relations between India and Israel. And that time it was a lot of criticism, but he was committed to understand the efficacy of Israeli bravado and also Israeli technology that can be used for the benefit of India. And now I think that you also must be knowing that the type of equipments we are getting from Israel, we are getting from nowhere, and it is easily available for India without any hiccups, political or any sort of diplomatic hiccups. So it is really some of the countries in the whole world after Russia that we are getting whatever we want in defense, in agriculture, in whatever field we want, they are ready to give us. And in that way, you can understand that it's a new sort of relationship, the one we had enjoyed once upon a time with Soviet Union. Now this is the time when even we are having very good relations with Russia, Israel is also coming to the fore to fill the gaps if there is any. So it's a really historical visit, and that is why Prime Minister Narendra Modi chose to go, taking all the risk of also creating fissures in some of our political arena and also some of the political population that are keeping the fingers crossed. But Frank, months before, Palestinian president was here in India, and that time also it was made very clear Palestinian president was on board that yes, Prime Minister Narendra Modi should visit and also should talk about Palestinian-Israeli relationship. So there is no problem on that front, and Israel and Palestine, and both the countries are on board. And if there can be any political solution, they are also trying to do it. They are also trying to take India on board to find a certain solution between Palestine and Israel. So it is in a way that everyone is telling that this is a very successful visit, and tomorrow Prime Minister is going to meet the CEOs of major Israeli companies, and he will also come to know that how much business we are going to do in fields other than defense, because defense deals are a very different type of mechanism, and it is almost there is no hiccup in defense cooperation, and that will be decided in different mechanism. But our business cooperation is going to take a tremendous jump, and also in a strategic format. Yeah.
Akhilesh, this sets the tone really for a great relationship in the days to come, because, there was a lot of skepticism within India, how this visit might indeed go, but it sets the tone perfectly for a great bilateral relationship in the days to come.
Naturally, since there are so many things, Benjamin Netanyahu told that our relationships were made in heaven, and we will cooperate in not only between India and Israel, but also many parts of the world. And he specifically mentioned the African countries where India is present in a big way in soft power. And if Israel joins hands with India, India and Israel can influence the whole African population and the whole African regimes, where many of the big countries are fighting together for getting some sort of space in business, in many other fields. But as India is in a way, in soft way, so India and Israel can cooperate in many of the African countries and many of the countries who are underdeveloped. So the relationship is not only bilateral, but relationship is going to be a cooperative partnership in the whole world, and that is why Benjamin Netanyahu told that we will not change only our relationships, we will not change only our countries, but we will also change some parts of the world. And it was very welcome and meaningful gestures from both the Prime Ministers, Frank.
All right, Akhilesh, Suman, thank you for joining us there with those details and sharing all those inputs with us. Now, in what was an emotional meeting, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also took out time to meet baby Moshe, the Israeli boy who lost his parents in the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks. Moshe Holzberg is now 11 years old and has been living in Israel with his grandparents. He met Prime Minister Modi along with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Reports claim that the meeting was planned on a personal request by the Prime Minister, who wanted to meet the 26/11 survivor and his nanny, Sandra Samuels. 53-year-old Samuels was granted honorary Israeli citizenship in 2008. She said that she frequently travels from her home in Jerusalem to visit Moshe and his grandparents. Moshe will be visiting a Chabad house in Mumbai after 2 years when he is 13. Well, it's time for a short break now, but news and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
I think they're ready to surrender.
आईएनए की भागी फौजियों पर अंग्रेज देशद्रोह का मुकदमा चलाएंगे।
उन तीनों के बचने के चांसेस कम हैं।
ये कोई आम केस नहीं, कोर्ट मार्शल है। बोला भाई, एक केस आप कांग्रेस के लिए नहीं, सुभाष बोस के लिए लड़ी।
Lieutenant Gobak Singh Dillon, Captain Shah Nawaz Khan, Captain P.K. Sehgal. Section 41, waging war against the king. You are charged with murder. Do you plead guilty to the charges read out?
ईमानदारी से आजादी के लिए लड़ने वाली अगर कोई फौज है तो उसका नाम है आजाद हिंद फौज।
The safety, honor and welfare of your country comes first, always.
British Indian Army hand you over to the Japanese Imperial Army.
हिंदुस्तान और अंग्रेजों के बीच एक धागा था, वो टूट गया।
इस बार कुछ ऊपर नीचे हुआ तो देश में बवाल मच जाएगा। अब जनता किसी अंग्रेज को नहीं छोड़ेगी।
रात दिन अपने सीने विच वजदी आजादी दे राग नू बंद कर ला।
अंग्रेजी अफसरों ने साडी हिफाजत नहीं की, तो वो हमारी वफादारी के हकदार किस तरह हो सकते हैं?
आज हिंदुस्तानी फौज के पास अपना असली मकसद है, हिंदुस्तान की आजादी।
तुम मुझे खून दो, मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा।
ये मुकदमा पूरी इंडियन नेशनल आर्मी का है।
क्योंकि हमने वो दिन देखा है जब हमें ऐसा लगा था कि हमने हिंदुस्तान को वाकई आजाद कर दिया।
देश की आजादी की लड़ाई कोर्ट में लड़ी जा रही है और इस वक्त पूरा देश एक साथ तैनात है।
This trial and its judgment shall be remembered throughout history.
Well, welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Now let's get you the latest on the India-China diplomatic row. Beijing today reiterated that its border in Sikkim's Dokalam region is clearly defined. Speaking to the media on Wednesday, China's foreign spokesperson once again urged India to withdraw troops from what it called China's territory. For over 20 days now, both countries have been involved in a standoff in Sikkim when India opposed China's attempt to extend a border road through a plateau known as Doklam in India and Donglang in China. On Wednesday, Chinese media too stepped up its attack on India, asking Indian troops to move out of Doklam with dignity or be kicked out. China's nationalistic tabloid Global Times said India should be taught a bitter lesson, while China Daily said India should be very worried. The Global Times also said in its editorial that India will suffer greater losses than in 1962 if it incites border clashes with China. The row comes as Prime Minister Narendra Modi prepares to meet with China's President Xi Jinping at the G20 summit in Germany this week. Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi on Wednesday criticized Prime Minister Narendra Modi for not raising the H-1B visa issue during his visit to the United States. In a series of tweets, Rahul called Modi a weak Prime Minister for accepting the US reference to Jammu and Kashmir as Indian-administered Kashmir. The Congress on its Twitter handle also said that Modi's US visit was merely a photo opportunity and the main issues were bypassed. The Congress had earlier urged Modi to take up during his meeting with Trump the issues of H-1B visa, racial attacks on Indians and cross-border terrorism from Pakistan.
Prime Minister's visit has purely been transactional. He has not been able to firmly articulate India's interests and also convey India's concerns. We had cautioned the Prime Minister before he went to America that he should secure credible and firm assurances from US President Donald Trump on an H-1B visa issues.
Well, the flood situation in Assam worsened with around 4 lakh people being affected across the state. Over 800 villages across the state are affected. Relief camps and control rooms have been set up by the government for immediate help. Here's a detailed report.
The flood situation in Assam remains grim, with more than 3.8 lakh people affected in 848 villages, including in Lakhimpur, Jorhat and Nalbari districts. Heavy monsoon rains have caused the already overflowing rivers to burst their banks, killing 17 people so far.
April, May, June, 3 months अभी तक about there is a loss of 16 persons. 60 persons lost their lives during this season flood, and so far area is concerned to 4,27,400 number of people are affected in 848 villages of 56 revenue circle this season May.
The Brahmaputra and Barak rivers have submerged hundreds of low-lying areas and damaged over 19,000 hectares of crop area. The state government has set up 148 relief camps and distribution centers in 8 districts where more than 24,000 people are currently taking shelter.
We are monitoring the situation. Everything is under control. जो deputy commissioner है वो उनका line department का आदमी के साथ हर तरफ मदद कर रहे हैं.
The Brahmaputra is flowing above the danger mark at Nipati Ghat in Jorhat and at Tezpur in Sonitpur. Ferry services on the Brahmaputra have also been suspended until further orders. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, let's now take a look at some other developments from across the country in Nationwide. Search operations are on in Arunachal Pradesh to locate a missing IAF helicopter with 3 operating personnel on board. The advanced light helicopter of the IAF that was engaged in flood rescue mission in the state went missing yesterday at 3:50 p.m. The helicopter was stranded due to floods and had made 5 sorties. GJM supporters hurled petrol bombs at TMC party office in Kalimpong as the indefinite shutdown sponsored by the outfit continued. They also took out a rally in Chowk Bazaar area with the traditional kukri shouting slogans in support of a separate state of Gorkha land. GJM Supremo Bimal Gurung said that talks can only be held if the agenda is Gorkha land. The The Sensex closed up 35.77 points at 31,245.56, while the Nifty ended higher by up to 24.30 points at 9,637.6. The market breadth was positive as 1,685 shares advanced against a decline of 932 shares, while 144 shares were unchanged. Lupin, ONGC and Vedanta gained the most, while ITC, Wipro and Infosys lost the most. The Jammu and Kashmir Assembly passed a resolution to implement the GST amidst protests by opposition parties. Meanwhile, BJP members and independent MLA from Udhampur, Pawan Gupta, supported the extension of the 101st Amendment to the Constitution to Jammu and Kashmir. The amendment enabled the centre to roll out a new tax regime across the country. However, opposition NC and Congress members demanded a separate bill in the Assembly which would safeguard the Article 370 of the Constitution. Moving on to some international news now. A day after North Korea launched a long-range nuclear-capable ballistic missile, China has urged Pyongyang to respect UNSC resolutions. China also alluded to the joint statement it made with Russia, where both countries expressed concern over the launch activities.
China has urged North Korea not to violate UN Security Council resolutions a day after Pyongyang launched an intercontinental ballistic missile that it claims is capable of carrying a large nuclear warhead. Some experts believe that ICBM launched on Tuesday could reach the mainland United States.
中方反对朝方违反安理会决议进行有关发射活动，敦促朝方不要再采取有违联合国安理会决议的行为。另外，我想你可能已经注意到了，中俄两国的外交部昨天发表了关于朝俄问题的联合声明。在声明中，中俄双方也对有关的发射活动表示了严重的关切。
Chinese President Xi Jinping also held talks with the German Chancellor on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Berlin on a range of issues, including North Korea.
Wir werden beim Mittagessen über die internationalen Situationen noch intensiver sprechen. Wir haben das gestern Abend schon begonnen mit den Themen Nordkorea natürlich, aber auch Rolle der Vereinten Nationen.
Earlier, the US and South Korea conducted joint missile drills off the coast of the southern half of the Korean peninsula, presumably in a show of force after the North's missile test.
이번 한미연합 미사일 사격은 북한의 어떠한 도발도 용납하지 않겠다는 한미 동맹의 강력한 의지를 표현한 것입니다.
South Korea also unveiled a simulation video on Wednesday showing its military capability against North Korea. The video explains the country's core countermeasures against North Korea's military provocations. The video also showed a missile being dropped on what appeared to be the Ministry of People's Armed Forces in Pyongyang. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, here's a roundup of the other international news and global buzz. In London, a task force will be sent in to take over parts of Kensington and Chelsea Council in the wake of the Grenfell Tower fire, which occurred on 14th June. The council has been heavily criticised for its handling of the disaster. The fire killed at least 80 and injured 70, but authorities are still not sure of the actual figures. The task force has been ordered to take over the housing department as well as other council operations. Former Guantanamo Bay inmate Omar Khadir will be paid $6 million as compensation by the Canadian government for the abuse he suffered in detention. Canadian-born Khadir was convicted in 2010 by a U.S. military commission of killing a U.S. soldier in Afghanistan. He was captured in 2002 at the age of 15 and spent a decade in the U.S. prison. In 2010, Canada's Supreme Court ruled that he was interrogated under oppressive circumstances. A New York City police officer was shot and killed on Wednesday. The assailant was later shot down while trying to escape the scene. Authorities said this was an unprovoked direct attack on the police officers in the city. This happens to be the 8th such attack on police authorities in New York in the past 3 years. A US congressman has been criticized for his 5-minute video inside the Auschwitz concentration camp. The memorial and museum tweeted that the gas chamber was not a stage but was a place for mournful silence. The museum responded that it was inappropriate to speak inside the gas chambers and later also posted a picture of the entrance to the building showing a sign asking for silence. The Netherlands' foreign ministry has announced that suspects in the shooting down of the MH17 passenger jet will be prosecuted in a Dutch court. 300 people died when the Malaysia Airlines flight was shot down in 2014. The investigation concluded that a Russian missile was used to bring down the plane. That's it on this newscast. Have a good evening.